أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه اللهم نور قلوبنا بنور الإيمان والقرآن والإسلام وصل اللهم على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Inshallah, we will continue our discussion on the miraculousness of Quran from 25th word. This is our ninth discussion on this chapter of the book. Last week, we talked about an example for the eloquence of Quran, the miraculousness of Quran contained in its eloquence. And we talked about an example of a sentence, but if a breath of your sustainers punishment touches them. And we saw how every single fragment within the sentence, every single unit in that sentence is supporting by adding on top of each other, supporting the end goal. And this was an example of how each of those verses are reinforcing the aim of the whole. So this example, author concluded, looks to the words and aim to a small degree. So it was about the relationship between the words and the aim. Now he's going to give us another example, again, about the miraculousness of Quran in its eloquence, but this time it's going to be about the it says, okay, conditions. So, but as a sentence, this time it's going to be parts of this sentence as a whole going to support the idea. So the example verse he gives in here is from Surah Al-Baqarah, second chapter. It is the third verse. And spend in God's way out of what we have bestowed on them as sustenance. So very quickly, I'm going back to Quran. So Surah Baqarah, Alif Lam Mim, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So this is the third verse. الَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ وَيُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. The part that author is going to analyze is this latest part of the verse. وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. So I will first read it, then we can discuss inshallah. The parts of this sentence point out 5 of the conditions which make almsgiving acceptable, like sadaqah. First condition, this is to give only so much alms as will not cause the giver to be in need of receiving alms himself. It states this condition through the division or part signified by out of in the words out of what. So in the text of the verse it is وَمِمَّا. So in this وَمِمَّا, min part is indicating that this is to give only so much alms as will not cause the giver to be in need of receiving alms himself. So it's not all of it, but some of it, out of what we have given to you. So don't give all of it, but give part of it, so much so that you will not cause the giver himself or herself is not going to be in need of receiving alms himself. Second condition, it is not to take from Ali and give it to Ali, not to take it from John and give it to Bob, but to give out of one's own property. The words we have bestowed on them as sustenance, express this condition. It means give out of the sustenance that is yours. So in the text it was razaqnahum. So now this part of it. So first he talked about wa mimma, this min part in here. Then razaqna in here, it is us who gave it to you. So you're going to be given, you're going to give from what is given to you as sustenance. So don't take somebody else and give it to somebody else. It's not the point of almsgiving. You should be giving from what is given to you. Third condition, this is not to place an obligation on the recipient. The word we, or na in the original text, we in we have bestowed on them as sustenance states this condition. So there was razaqna, so there was na at the end. So this na, this we, in we have bestowed on them as sustenance states this condition. That is to say, I give you the sustenance. When you give some of my property to one of my servants, you cannot place them under an obligation. Fourth condition, you should give it to a person who will spend it on his livelihood. For alms given to those who will squander it idly is not acceptable. The word spend points to this condition. So yunfiqun. So in there, so yunfiqun, the word nafaqa is about somebody to like minimum livelihood. The word nafaqa is when it is I'm trying to earn my nafaqa. If I say, for instance, it means I am trying to earn my livelihood. So you're going to spend it to someone who is going to use it for his or her livelihood. So the choice of word nafaqa in there highlights this. Fifth condition, this is to give in God's name. The words we bestow on them as sustenance states this. Razaqnahum. That is to say, the property is mine. You should give it in my name. These conditions may be extended. That is, the form almsgiving should take with what goods. It may be given as learning and knowledge. It may be given as words or as acts or as advice. The word what in out of what indicates these. So mimma, ma over there. So now the author is referring to the second part of this mimma. So initially he talked about min. Now he is talking about ma. It may be given as learning and knowledge. It may be given as words or as acts or as advice. The word what in out of what indicates these various sorts through its generality. Furthermore, it indicates this with the sentence itself because it's absolute and expresses generality. Thus, with the 5 conditions in this short sentence describing almsgiving, it opens up a broad field before the mind, granting it to it through the sentence as a whole. Thus, in the sentence as a whole, the word order has many aspects. Yes. So the way the words are ordered and picked in this verse, in this actually short part of the verse, is stating 5 conditions what makes almgiving and not anything else, which means conditions which make almsgiving acceptable. So, any comments about this part? Let me stop and see if anybody wants to make comments. Okay, it looks like it's quite straightforward what author is saying in here. Everybody understood. Okay. I guess in terms of explaining the rules or grammar, it might be clear, but let's also take our lesson from Quran and try to make sense of this verse the way author is explaining it. So I guess while reading the text, this 25th word, one thing that we can gain from this chapter is truly appreciating how miraculous Quran is, and it cannot be word of man, but it's divine speech. This is one aspect, because in such a short sentence, uh, or even part of a sentence, so many meanings in depth is being expressed, which is like in here, at least the author is listing 5 conditions and writing a lot of meaning in there. So within a single sentence, embedding all this meaning is extraordinary. But aside from that, also, we should try to get our lesson from these verses. What does it mean to me? How is it becoming a guidance for me? So this being said, Brother Birkan raised his hand. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum and Jazakallah khairan for beautiful introduction comments. So as you said, like how are we going to get guidance out of this? So there are a few points that I like to mention. The first is, it is really amazing, like how such a concise, the phrase or sentence includes all these details. It's already amazing. But it's also amazing that the author is trying to extract this information out of one sentence. So this author, it's obvious that he has an expectation that my creator's speech must be full of wisdom, and full of wisdom in a literal sense. Like whatever it is there, every single word, even every single letter sometimes, right? The connectors between words, they must mean something. This is my creator speaking. So I will extract all this information. This is the expectation. And it is really hard to match this expectation. So it shouldn't sound as if, author is already starting with the assumption that, I will somehow extract some, the wisdom out of it. No, he says, at least this is how I understand. He says, okay, I expect a sentence from Quran, if it is a speech of God, must be full of wisdom in a literal sense again. And he says, this is amazing. Quran actually can satisfy my needs, satisfy my expectation. The match between expectation and eloquence, miraculousness, it's really important. And that's one thing. The second thing, when we think about this verse and what comes before that. So as far as I remember, this verse is the continuation of the ayah, which kind of defines muttaqin, right? The God conscious. It starts with, وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِالْغَيْبِ. So they believe in unseen. And then this part comes, and they also spend from, in a very simple English, which doesn't do any justice, they spend out of what we give them, and so on. And so when we take it that way, like being God conscious, and then this part, spending what is given to them, at the first sight doesn't make much sense. Like it's as if, unrelated things are put together, living unseen, and then spending, praying, doing salah, and then giving charity. But as author explains, says this sentence actually explains, gives you that everything you have, whatever you are given, right? Whatever you are given, it is, whatever you have, it is given by us, it says. And then it is our property that we are bestowing upon you as a, nima, as a gift, let's say. And you are expected to practice this understanding. If it doesn't belong to me, and if I see someone who are in need, I should automatically say that, okay, this is, was given to me for a purpose, and then this feeling is given to me right now, that the feeling to help, I feel pity for the guy, or I feel bad for the guy, and I have these, the money or whatever is given, the smile, as the author says, it's whatever, it's everything. Maybe it's knowledge, maybe it's good mood, that it is given, created in me by my creator, by my Rob, sustainer, and I'm supposed to give at least a proportion of it to other people. So this phrase actually, on top of its grammatical miracle, it also explains us, what happens around us. That everything I have, it's given. Everything I have is created. So I'm supposed to use them in a proper way. That I am under a Sharia, under a ruling. This single sentence tells all of this. That I cannot spend the things that I assume to belong to me as I wish. I cannot do that. It's not my property. The same verse says that. And I have to spend them properly. I cannot give them away to anyone. Just because it's my friend, just because it's my whatever. I prefer to give it to X, but not Y. Verse says no. You cannot discriminate between people and say that, okay, I will smile to white people, but not to black people. Or I will, respect men, but not women. You cannot do that, the verse says. It's not your property to choose. If somebody is in need, if it will be considered as yunfiqun nafaka, then you are supposed to give it. So all this single sentence explaining all these, and actually which makes sense to me in this moment that I live, that all people that I interact with, this is amazing. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you. Aziz?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. So, as we look actually at this sentence, وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ, it's really is beautiful, but also its location is really beautiful, because starting from Alif Lam Mim until the last line that we can see, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. It's just its location seems to me very miraculous. Like it goes it goes on and on about faith and believe and praying and it arrives like to this beautiful sentence about that we have to share what we have been given, and then it returns back to وَالَّذِينَ يُؤْمِنُونَ بِمَا أُنزِلَ إِلَيْكَ وَمَا أُنزِلَ مِنْ قَبْلِكَ وَبِالْآخِرَةِ هُمْ يُوقِنُونَ. So it shows that this is really well integrated in our belief. I just want to read again row 3 and 4. الذين يؤمنون بالغيب ويقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. And then it goes on, والذين يؤمنون بما أنزل إليك وما أنزل من قبلك وبالآخرة هم يوقنون. It's just the location of this sadaqah of, sorry, I don't translate much because my English always fails me. But this is the location of it. It's surrounded by belief in that you can't see, then praying, then it shows up, and then it returns to believing in again. So that's really nice thing. The other thing I want to share is just my own vulnerability personally. Yusuf, do you mind going to the page where we're looking at some of the conditions, please? Thank you. So one of these conditions is just almost impossible for me. It's like the obligation. This is not to place an obligation. And it is for me very challenging. And it's not, it's just because although it's not like that I give that much all the time, or anyways, and it's not that when I give, I'm gonna say, oh, I'm giving you this because I want this, but to have that, but to be aware always, constantly, that what you're giving is not really yours. It's such a beautiful concept, but it's really hard for me, at least. And also freeing others from that obligation is not easy to do because I have seen these examples in myself. Like, although there is no spelled out obligation, I don't know, it's implied most of the times. And I think the root of that is when you start thinking that you're giving what is yours. That's the root of when you link it to obligation. And that's all I have now.
Jazakallahu khairan. Very beautiful comments. Yes, and then let's, already you guys started making comments about it. So the author in here is talking about conditions of acceptance. So what do we understand from acceptance of a deed? So is it something relatable? So for example, I might be a unwise person, or I might just, it might be my style that for me to accept your friendship, these are my conditions here. You need to be swimming well. You need to be riding bicycle good. Occasionally, if you lie, that's okay. These might be my list of conditions for accepting you to my friendship. And then if you ask me why, what is your list of whatever conditions of your accepting to friendship, here are my conditions. So when it comes to conditions of being almsgiving being accepted, is it like the creator says, okay, here is my list of 5, go with it? Is it like that? Or as Brother Birkan was saying, he said, when I read this, it resonates with me. So actually it makes sense that the conditions of acceptance of almsgiving should be like this. It makes sense. It fits to my humanity in a sense. So this was an interesting point. In a sense, what I understand from that definition is almsgiving being acceptable is giving of alms is for a purpose, to make me recognize something. And if I match those 5 conditions, this goal is going to be fulfilled. I'm going to achieve the goal of giving almsgiving. So in a sense, if I don't do these, let's say, conditions, then it's going to be waste. It's going to go for a waste. Waste of time, waste of sources, whatever. But if I fulfill these 5 conditions, it's going to become an accepted deed. For instance, what is, if I ask the question, what is the conditions of acceptance of studying for an exam? Any idea? I'm seeing all names that are professional students here. What would you list as the, in general, as conditions of acceptance of studying? So Aziz, if this is a new hand, you can go ahead. If not, any other hands? Okay, it's an old hand, so I'm lowering your hand. Okay, professional students didn't give an answer. Then let me give an answer to my own question. Actually, when I was an undergrad, a friend of mine, we were living in the same house, but we were taking this lab course, which was, they give us the problem ahead of time. It was a programming class. And we need to solve the problem at home, but when the lab time comes, we need to do the program in 1 hour. So, and since memorizing doesn't really work for programming, the idea is you get to learn how it works perfectly so that you don't need to do trial and error when you're doing it in the lab. So I worked at home. I was able to do the coding at home, but I had a lot of struggle when doing the coding in the lab. After this experience, I came home and warned my friend about what is to happen for him. To find out his working style. How he was working was he had his literally popcorn. So hand is oily, as you can easily imagine. He is looking at the computer screen, reading slides. And since his hand is dirty, definitely he is not going to do coding with a dirty hand. And by just with his pointing finger, he just clicks on the next button to go to the next slide. But this is how he is preparing himself for a programming test. And if you know a little bit about programming, this is not an acceptable way of studying for any sort of programming exam at all. He is putting effort, apparently he is putting time in there, but 1 week later, his efforts are not accepted, meaning he took the test and he failed. So in a sense, in the creation, the creator is showing us if he accepts a deed, or I mean, in some of the cases at least, if a deed is accepted or if a deed is not accepted or rejected. So when it comes to almsgiving, what makes it accepted, what makes it not accepted? And this verse is telling us these conditions. And when I read it, I guess the reason that I can make sense of it is because if I think about the purpose of almsgiving, meaning that by this almsgiving, actually, I am going to recognize what is being listed in these conditions, meaning that I am being provided. So for me to realize that I am being provided, I am giving to someone that is already given to me by my creator. This is why I shouldn't be taking from John and giving it to Bob and considering this as, oh, I did something good. I didn't experience the idea that whatever is given to me was given to me by my creator, and now I'm giving it to somebody else. So appreciation of the provider is not there, for instance. And it makes sense that this is one of the conditions, for example. So this being just an example, now I would like to invite all you that let's go through the conditions and see why it makes sense that this is put as from my creator as a condition of almsgiving. Now, rather than grammatically questioning, now we are questioning, why did my creator put the first as a condition? Or how does it fit my reality? Or is it just like some, astaghfirullah, let's say, but some arrogant, like, let's say you are asking for a lady's hand in marriage and she puts some arrogant condition out there, says, well, you need to dig a hole in that mountain and bring water from behind the mountain to here so that I'm going to marry you. Like just a condition. Since the Creator is all wise, there must be wisdom in all these conditions, right? So, what's the first condition? This is to give only so much alms as will not cause the giver to be in need of receiving alms himself. What do you think about this one? Or any other one? Waiting for your comments. Is it dinner time, people? Okay, A&A says this acceptability, in the chat they say this acceptability is also inherently about what will sit well with my own human reality. It is an internal acceptability as well, they say. So this acceptability is, in a sense, verifiable within myself. This is what I understand from here. So when my Creator puts this acceptability condition out there, and if I check myself, I say, this makes sense actually. This is a reasonable condition, not only reasonable, but a necessary condition for that purpose to be fulfilled. This is what I understood. And they say they're still thinking about that topic. This is why they are not raising hands. Okay. So what does the first one indicate? This is to give only so much alms as will not cause the giver to be in need of receiving alms himself. I will then, until you guys decide to talk, I will think loudly, as if this verse is saying that don't put yourself in a condition that you are going to be in need of somebody else. I don't know if this is a correct wording, so check if you agree or disagree. But do not put yourself in a condition that you will, in a sense, open your hands to others, expecting help from them. Why is that? Is that something bad? Yes, Abdulaziz, go ahead.
Oh, do you say go ahead? I didn't hear that.
Yes, yes, I did.
My brain got it a little later. Okay, so I'm just trying to answer that question of yours to my understanding. I think it seems like a common sense because for most we are responsible for ourselves, and it's we share what we must share what we have been given with ourselves and not put ourselves in need. And it's just a fairness thing. I think that's how I see that. I think it's not fair at all to spend so much that you become the one who needs the sadaqah. That's just my attempt to answer the question.
Good, Jazakallah khairan. But from a belief point of view, since you guys very well said that the verse starts with belief in the unseen, then talks about some actions, and then brings the discussion back to belief in the scriptures, right? So from a, in a sense, the way actually Aziz, also Birkan put it when they were mentioning the ordering of the verses. So started with يؤمنون بالغيب, then came يقيمون الصلاة ومما رزقناهم ينفقون. The way I understand this way of ordering is in terms of muttaqin, like the God conscious, there's belief, but then there's a response to the Creator, which is being manifest in a physical action like salah, and also another physical action, which is giving of the alms. So in a sense, these two actions are necessary part of retaining God consciousness and sort of confirming or supporting belief in the unseen. So what is being done in here with the first condition is to give only so much alms as not to cause yourself to be in need of receiving alms yourself, should also have a connection with the belief and application of belief. So in a sense, it might put me in a challenging position to practice my belief if I don't do as such. Thinking out loud, can it be that although I am given by my Creator sustenance, if I put myself willingly in a condition that I am going to be in need of receiving or like deprived of sustenance, let's say, then can it be that it becomes a challenge for me that I forget where the source is? Because if I am in need of, let's say, I gave all my money out there, and then I am expecting Aziz to give me money because I am seeing that he is a rich guy. And my friend Aziz giving me, and maybe he is putting some obligation on me. As he said, he faces it as a challenge. But he put an obligation on me when giving it to me. It looks like it might become a obstacle for me to practice belief in such a condition. It's not that it's impossible, but as if now I am putting and I chose this to happen this way, I am putting Aziz as an intermediary in between me and my sustainer, in which I might lose the sight of who is true sustainer, as if, can it be, again, I am putting it with a question mark because I truly am not sure. This verse is saying that I am the giver to you already, and keep the sustenance that is necessary for you from what I have given to you. And then for the rest, from within the rest, give it to others. This being said, Farah, please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah for this discussion today. I also will not be pointing out exactly what solves this, if you call it little sort of tension, but I think it might also be in the same line as, for example, we're reading in the other session about the treatise on sickness. So there are lots of opportunities, let's say, that's when somebody is sick gets to see in order to get closer to or be more aware of their recognition of the qualities of the sustainer. But they are not, no one, there's a notion that you cannot choose to be sick in order to do that. Similarly, if one thinks about like frugality, not poverty, let's say, there is something about not choosing to be poor in order for one to get sort of more awareness of God, but rather once that condition is, one finds themselves in that condition without their choice, only then is the intended purpose of getting closer or more aware of the qualities of the sustainer makes sense. So I'm thinking that there's a common strain in this, which is when you choose to do something that puts you in a position, as you're saying, creates difficulty for you, perhaps one would think that it creates a contradiction in you, in the fact that what you know of the Creator to be, let's say, merciful or just, or the sustainer and giver, that you choose to put yourself in a situation that perhaps negates or challenges those qualities. I don't know if that's the right word. There's something inherently illogical, or something inherently that does not fulfill the purpose intended in that act. So again, there's a theme in this concept of choosing to put yourself in a situation of hardship or in need, as opposed to finding yourself in this situation. And I'm also wondering how to connect them.
Jazakallah khairan. And yeah, I see A&A. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Perhaps along somewhat similar lines. I think two thoughts occurred to me. One, that wisdom would necessitate that need is not perpetuated, right? A system of giving should not be one that perpetuates a cycle of need or poverty, as we see in the world today. The very mechanisms of charity that we partake in, or that are sort of acclaimed, are also mechanisms that produce and reinstate poverty. Secondly, this notion of overgiving. I think Brother Yusuf said something along these lines as well. One, there's this something about overgiving that is somewhat of a forgetfulness that the true source of mercy, the true source of sustenance, is taking care of everyone. One's giving, my giving does not help anyone. It's only a means as well. It's not what creates the fulfillment of a need. And overgiving, I think, presumes, whether well-intentional or not, that I am the source of eradicating one's need. So I think, ironically enough, in that overgiving, there might be a sort of arrogance and arrogance that one is acting in such a way where they almost one-up the creator or the true provider. So those were just two thoughts that I wanted to share.
Jazakallah khairan. And when you were making those comments, what occurred to me is also I am someone in need of sustenance. And in a sense, now I am separating me and myself. What I mean by that is myself is a creation of my creator who is being provided, and me with my choice, like the power of will, is entrusted with this self. So I shouldn't torture myself, for example. If I torture myself or torture a cat, actually I am doing pretty much the same thing in terms of torturing creation of the creator. So as if this verse is saying that you are going to give this alms to fulfill somebody's needs. Yeah, so you are that one. So keep the one, like sustaining yourself from which your creator gave it to you. This is also part of your duty to observe manifestation of your creator's names, because in the first hand, if you do so, you are going to experience the sustainer. You shouldn't be, let's say, depriving yourself of experiencing or gaining the first-hand experience of what it means to be provided, what it means to be sustained. So keep that, experience it in terms of even, I mean, if you would like to get it to the extreme of giving so much to the others so that you are going to experience what sustainer means in another sense, but with the condition that your understanding is going to be all going to the sustainer, the provider. So the experience you are going through in there, you will say, Alhamdulillah, whatever is worthy of praise goes to the creator. But at the same time, you shouldn't shy away from experiencing being provided in the first place by your creator giving you the sustenance. So keep that. It is also part of your education of Iman. So this part, since is the first condition, I guess, is very necessary. Experiencing the bare minimum and firsthand experience of receiving something from my creator. Aziz, go ahead.
I think also I just want to point to, I thought about this ayah in Surah Al-Ahzab. I actually looked it up in English so I can read it. It's surely we offer the trust to the heavens and the earth and the mountains, but they refuse to be unfaithful to it and feared from it, and man has turned unfaithful to it. Surely he is unjust. For those who know the ayah, it's إِنَّا عَرَضْنَا الْأَمَانَةَ عَلَى السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَالْجِبَالِ فَأَبَيْنَ أَنْ يَحْمِلْنَهَا وَأَشْفَقْنَ مِنْهَا وَحَمَلَهَا الْإِنسَانُ إِنَّهُ كَانَ ظَلُومًا جَهُولًا. It's just, I thought about it because if you take the order seriously, you should think of this as part of the trust of yourself, as part of the trust, physically and mentally, and you should handle. I'm not saying I do this myself, but I'm just saying that it is a responsibility that you should take care of, and it's not a joke. It's a serious responsibility. So I just thought I should share with you those thoughts.
Jazakallah khair. So in that, responsibility is again part of the learning process, because if you look at what is the purpose of my living in this life, in this existence, it is for learning. And it's very beautiful that the first revelation was Iqra in this sense, because I am meant to learn in this existence. My creator is teaching me. So all the experiences that I'm going through is for learning. So this is why this lil-muttaqeen, so this God consciousness is what I'm supposed to achieve. This is the diploma that the degree that I'm going to take, or as I am taking throughout my life. And this is the goal that I'm trying to attain. So that learning process is, this Iman is there, and also submitting to that truth. Living by that truth, in other words, is يُقِيمُونَ الصَّلَاةَ وَمِمَّا رَزَقْنَاهُمْ يُنْفِقُونَ. So this is going to feed the cycle back. So Iman and Islam, Iman and submitting to the truth through prayer, through almsgiving, is going to reinforce this learning process of being God conscious. So as Aziz was putting it, being responsible for watching over myself, but myself as an abd of the creator, as a creation of the creator, not as myself as an independent being. I am entrusted with this entity being feeding this body, if you like, but in the name of my creator, not feeding it in my own name. Oh yeah, I work hard, this is hard earned money, it's my money. So, and this is my body, I need to feed it with the best food so that I live longer or I live more comfortably, not that. So the responsibility is in the sense of this is, well, actually, an example about this one is I was once studying in a school and they were giving laptops to each and every one of their students to be used in education. Yeah, of course, some students were using it for playing computer games, but now this is being irresponsible use of this tool, which is given to you for the purposes of education. Likewise, my body or my whole existence with all its aspects is given to me as opportunities for education, for learning my maker, being conscious of my maker. But if I deprive myself of these opportunities or abuse them, then this is going to be an irresponsible way of using them, which would make, and I mean, it being the first condition is interesting, it's going to make my giving, it might make my giving, let's put it this way, it might make my giving of alms waste. I'm putting this condition also might, because there are cases and examples, for instance, going into war in the first place. What are you doing? You're putting your life at stake for protecting somebody else or something else. It might be, you might be trying to protect the religion, or you might be trying to protect your family or the people that are left behind. So you are putting this sustenance, which is life, at stake for protecting somebody else. So there are other conditions, other cases also, I think. This is why I say this, not fulfilling this condition might put the things into jeopardy. But in general, if we think about this now in more general case of maybe sustenance in terms of food or money, I guess it makes more sense. Okay. If there are no other comments, I'm going to the second condition, which says it is not to take from Ali and give it to Wali, but to give out of one's own property. The words we have bestowed on them as sustenance express this condition. It means give out of the sustenance that is given to you. So what happens? What's wrong with taking from Nazmul and giving to Aziz? What will be missing if I do this rather than giving out of my own pocket? I guess it's quite clear. This is why nobody is making comments. Okay, as it says, moving money and debt around credit cards. Yeah. So it looks like it's not going to fulfill the purpose of almsgiving. It's not going to be almsgiving, actually, if I don't give from what is given to me. As if my creator wants me to give in very specific cases so that it's going to be a perfect understanding. It's going to give me a perfect understanding. So something that I give to you, maybe you might fall into a false understanding that it's not given to me, but it's mine. So he says, no, I want from the one in your pocket. Are you going to be able to give it to somebody else? Because if you take it from somebody else's pocket and put it into another person's pocket, nothing is at stake for yourself. I mean, yourself in this case being me putting myself or checking myself, questioning myself in terms of, am I really the owner? What am I learning in this process if I simply take from Atik's pocket and put it into Nazmul's pocket? Where is God consciousness in this type of a relationship? But if I do it with what is given to me, and I guess I need to overcome this false self-image that it's mine. By the way, this is a very real thing, this self-image of it is mine. A scene that I remember when we talk about this, we were in Marshalls. You guys know where Marshalls is. What Marshalls is. We were in Marshalls, and of course wife is making the shopping, and as a responsible husband, I'm just hanging around. So I saw a little girl, just 2 years old, I guess, because she was on this cart. They put it into the cart. She is not walking, so she is able to fit into the cart. They were in front of this toys aisle, and the little girl was crying, mine, mine, mine to everything. And her mother was saying, they're not yours, shut up, sort of a response from that angry mother. So as if human is being tested with that, or we are being trained from childhood to learn about this. It's not a weak feeling, it's such a strong feeling, and we are being trained about this from this very little ages. Actually, last week, Birkan and their beautiful daughter was our guest, and our little Zainab, which is 18 months old, so she had those wooden blocks, and Birkan's daughter is picking one of them, and we have 152 of those blocks. They are all over the carpet. Zainab goes and picks the one that Bushra is picking. She doesn't want to share because it's Zainab's, so it is her. So at such an early age that this feeling of mine is there. It looks like this ownership is a thing that needs to be, I mean, why is it being put to human in such an early age, as if this is something from which we are going to learn a lot about our maker. So this idea of ownership is a very strong feeling that is to teach us about who our creator is. And almsgiving is a way to treat this. So do not waste that opportunity. You should be checking yourself. Is this your feeling of ownership is in its proper place? Is it being properly used? Or are you playing safe and wearing your gloves? You pick from somebody else's pocket and put into another person's pocket and satisfy yourself by being the intermediary, rather than dirtying your hand with your own pocket and saying that this is not my own. Brother Birkan, please go ahead.
Jazakallah khairan. So as we think about these words and the ayah, entire ayah, as others also mentioned, including yourself, it is not an easy job. It's really a huge training that this ayah is asking for. So even like the word used, like razakna, razak, right? Rizq, sustenance. It's not simply whatever we give them. I don't know what giving mean in Arabic, the word give, but I'm sure there are at least 5 different words to mean giving or giving away. But on purpose, it says razak. No. So risk, it talks about the sustenance. Whatever we give them as sustenance. And seeing things in my life as sustenance, it's something, I have to train myself a lot, as already discussed. Because most of the times the things are the ganima, like a reward of the war that I, win. I work really hard and I gain the reward. I achieve the goal and I, earn the reward. Whether it is money, whether it is relationship, whether it is a smile of a beloved one, you make a joke and make people smile. So seeing on the opposite side, seeing this smile as risk, as sustenance, which is given, it makes, it increases the value a lot. It puts it in completely another category. So much so that our Creator says, if you want to do charity, just give charity from whatever you see as sustenance, because the rest is just garbage. The things that you assume belong to you, that you really you really worked hard and gain the outcome, the money, smile, friendship, whatever. If that's the case, it's just valueless garbage. And I don't want you to give others from them. Don't, insult them with your filth. If you think it's your money in your pocket, just save it to yourself. Just use it as another ayah says, use it as a wood stock, like a wood for your fire in the hell. Just put them together. You will need them. You will need them to start and then, make your fire bigger. But the ones that you see as sustenance, that you know that sustenance, these are the valuable ones, and they worth giving away to others. If you give others from them the sustenance that you have, you will not be insulting them. You will be rewarding them with your understanding. So again, this is a big training. This is a huge training. This is like, I challenge that make a search for charity. It will be really hard unless, Google knows that you are a Muslim, and then it will suggest you some sources, some websites about the Quran and so on. If this is not the case, use this, what is called incognito, like Firefox, Chrome, they have these anonymous options. You open a new tab which blocks every tracking, anything. Use them and search for charity. The definitions you will see will be completely different than what is defined in Quran. So it is miraculous in eloquence, it is miraculous in grammar, it is miraculous in word choice, but also it is miraculous in the world that it creates. The concepts that it introduces. It is miraculous from every aspect. One of the probably biggest source of charity in our world is tax exempt. It's not even something that you have, that you do charity for not paying tax. It's not even, it's not even similar with what the Quran defines. What we call as charity is just giving away some filth, like throwing this filth on their face. Our lives are miserable, and we making their life as miserable as ours as well. It's, again, I will just repeat it and stop here. It's a huge training that we should go through. And the first step is just accepting that what we know about ourselves, about life, is probably wrong. Let Quran teach us. Let Quran speak with its miraculous speech and teach us its new concepts. Recreate our world. Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. Yes. So the definition of this verse is also providing a definition and understanding of what it is for, the way it is formulating almsgiving. So is it for the good of society? What is the point? What is the point of almsgiving? But the way it is introduced in between these, like after muttaqeen and in between iman, so it is indicating that it's part of your education, unlike what society is suggesting. So as if you're trying to save your money from, like, just as if bribing the poor so that they're not going to come against you and steal your money. So just keep them, bribe them so that they will be obligated to you, so that they're not going to steal from you. Not like that. But it's giving us this is a personal education that's going to make us recognize our provider, our sustainer. So A put a question there. It says, makes me wonder why we are given this feeling of ownership. Of course, it helps us understand that there must be a true single owner, but why with such intensity do we feel it from such a young age? They ask. Good question, which I guess would make us, I mean, if anybody wants to give an answer, yeah, we'll be more than happy to hear. But I guess the verse that Aziz quoted needs to be very well studied, or addressing this in depth, this trust. Why are we given this trust? I guess this is the question that A and A are asking, actually. So why did our Creator offer the trust to us? A trust that is not accepted by heavens and the earth and mountains. They refused it because they were afraid of it. Such a heavy thing. Why? Man took it up. And the Creator says, verily, man always been prone to the most wicked, most foolish. So it is such a wrongdoing, waluman and jahulan, like in its utmost degree. Why is the Creator, although accepting it's such a thing, but I found myself to be in it, so why is it like that? Is a question hanging in there. If anybody wants to answer. Yeah, Aziz, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want to add that actually, at least I can speak from my own experience. It seems like are you guys there? Something happened weird in my screen. Okay.
Yeah, we are here.
Okay, so something, at least from my own experience, is that this ownership thing is very clear, that things that I think that I own are not mine. At least this is something I'm 100% sure about. and from my own experience, this worked hard for it crap. Honestly, just never worked for me personally. And every time I think of it, I just get a lot of agony from that thing that I thought I worked hard to get. And therefore, at least this is just my own logic. I think it just makes sense that when I was a kid, or even recently in my life, as I'm growing, I just, maybe my reference point I was like, oh, this is my stuff when I was a little baby. And I'm hoping that I continue truly believing that it's not my thing. So I'm just thinking about that it's something we gotta grow out of. I don't have any talent that got me to arrive there, but I just have faced consequences for thinking that things are mine. This is nothing that important. Just I'm sharing my own experience.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you very much for sharing. Farah, please go ahead.
Yes. So if I'm going to take this question from the existential lens, and forgive me for not being too articulate. I mean, too much Zoom time every day just has my brain fried. But so why do we feel the need to take ownership of things? So if I think about man's, sort of purpose or need, ultimate existential need, which is for this existence to mean something for him. And in order for this to mean something, it's natural, it's sort of in me to, okay. I mean, it has to come from, it has to mean something for me, so and I'm already putting myself in relation to the meaning that I want to get. And in that position, one has, again, as always, two choices, which is to attach that meaning to myself or not to myself, or that to which it comes from, or the source that it comes from. And so I think there's an urge, or there's a need for my existence to mean something to me. And there is a sense of the ownership part for me is just coming from the fact that it relates to mineness, or my sense of myself, who I think I am. So that's how I'm relating the idea of ownership. The fact that I can also use, take this to attach ownership of things or causes or other things to myself is, again, a choice that we can make to do so. But why do we have this sense of ownership? It has something to do with my need to make sense of my own existence. So maybe not too clear, but just wanting to connect the sense of ownership to defining my identity, or the need that I want to define my identity. But, as you said, man can make an error in doing so, and has the choice to choose how he does it.
Jazakallah khairan. By the way, Farah, Atik made this internal joke, just so you know what that means. It was a joke. He said the E word. So when you said, I'm not going to be articulate, you're more than welcome to be not articulate. I mean, the reason that this E word is, the word existence is a heavy word, and we are very much welcoming not to use such a word, but it's just a joke. Feel free if you would like to use it. So yeah, and it's, what I understand is, it looks like, and it's even part of shahada, ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluhu. So this understanding of recognizing me being an abd, meaning I am needy, constantly needy. I am impotent. I'm not able to fulfill those needs by myself either. So what is the best way of understanding this? In a sense, as if I'm being put in a condition that I think myself to be not needy, but then undoing this, I am being invited to perfectly understand that I am needy. So although my reality is being perfectly in need, I have this false self-image that no, I own something. So as if I am put into this uphill battle in which I am invited to learn better. In a sense, if you are trying to build up muscle, more weight is being put, or more things are being put in front of you so that you're going to go through certain challenges, whichever muscle you are trying to build, this sort of training is being put in front of you. Likewise, in order to understand my neediness, the training that is being suggested to me is just the opposite of it. I am self-sufficient. I own things. It's mine. So by trying to undo this or untie this knot, I'm being trained, or is the best way to get trained to learn about the provider, the sustainer, the true source of existence, using the E word, Atik, for your sake. Jazakallah khairan. And yeah, thanks a lot for all the comments. Let's go with the third, fourth, and fifth condition as we are coming to the end of the discussion. 10, 12 minutes are left. The third condition, this is not to place an obligation on the recipient. The word we in we have bestowed, razaqna, na over there, states this condition. That is to say, I give you the sustenance. When you give some of my property to one of my servants, you cannot place them under an obligation. Which is very beautiful. And if we think about this, maybe for giving money, as Aziz said, this is challenging for sure when it comes to giving money or anything of this sort. But in the following part of the text, he talks about knowledge, or like different types of almsgiving. Yeah, with knowledge, with word, with actions, with suggestions. I guess things are getting tougher when it comes to giving things which are immaterial. Because material things, you know when it entered into your pocket. There might be a sense of like more tangible. So this money was not there, now it is in there. Or this house, I didn't own it before, now I do own it. And then let's say I give it to somebody else. But how about giving suggestion to someone? Maybe you are not cognizant of how it came to you, because it just, you found it in your mind, sort of, and now you are giving this suggestion to somebody else. Yes, it's even more challenging in such a case, because it came to you silently. To give it to someone without thinking that this is not mine, and then if the second condition is not met, the third condition becomes tougher. Because if it is mine, then I'm asking for return from you. I'm going to put you under obligation if I don't realize that it's not mine, which is going to be more challenging when giving things that are immaterial. Okay. Any comments about third condition? The fourth condition is you should give it to a person who will spend it on his livelihood. This is an interesting one because there are a lot of campaigns nowadays, fund me, GoFundMe campaigns. There's a picture somebody says they're in need of, and I just give it to them. I don't know how they're spending it. Yeah, in the picture, maybe it looks like they're a nice guy, or they explain their condition in detail, saying that they're going to use it for tuition, they're going to use it for, I don't know, health expenses, whatever. So what is the point of this fourth condition? That they should spend it for their livelihood, their sustenance, not for luxury, for instance. What does this teach me? I mean, it's the other guy that's using it. How does how that person is going to spend, at least to the extent that I'm aware of? How does it help my belief? How does it help my consciousness of my creator? Brother Birkan?
I think it's also, it's still related to what we discussed before, the things being sustenance. So when things are sustenance for you, you have a respect for them. You see them as highly valuable. This is sustenance. This is something fulfills a need. And anything that have a potentiality to fulfill a need, if this potentiality goes for nothing, it is a waste, right? So for instance, if you have an apple, let's say, and you see that somebody using apple as a, I don't know, to hold the door, you know, in order to keep the door open, you put an apple in front of it, a very nice, crispy, honey crispy apple in front of it, so that it will keep it open. It is wasted. You just feel bad for that. So I guess this is the same way. When you have sustenance and when you share it with someone else as sustenance, you should have respect. You should have respect for it, and the other party should also have respect for it. Meaning, they will also see it as a sustenance from their sustainer, not from you, of course. As we studied this, right, in the maybe very first word, that you should only take in the name of God and you should only give in the name of God. So if other person will not take it in the name of God and will not respect it as a sustenance, but rather will spend it or use it for pleasure, for, you know, something which is not a need, then the sustenance is wasted. And why you should care, it's their problem. It is about your respect. It is about your realization that is given to you. It was given to you as a gift. And we human beings, we usually respect gifts. So I guess it's, again, about how you see it. Do you see it as money of mine? You know, I can spend it as much, you know, as, as I wish. If this is the condition, you wouldn't care what other party, how other party uses it. But if you see it as a gift from your sustainer, as a sustenance, then you respect it and you expect, you want it to be spent in the right way.
And this is also beautiful that, like, the way that, for example, prayer being suggested or encouraged to be done in congregation. because it has an aspect, the congregational prayer has an aspect that looks to the God consciousness as a communal act, not only as an individual act. This almsgiving is also becoming not as an individual experience, but while I am giving it, I am expected to become cognizant or gain God consciousness. But while giving it to the other person, I am as if being reminded that this other person should be aware of, or you should have some sort of a, you should try to make that person also be aware of what is going on in this relation. I am giving this to you for you to be using it for your sustenance. And also the fifth condition is going to say this is to give in God's name. So then I would say I am giving it in the name of my creator. So this, I am trying to also make the person that is the recipient become conscious of his or her sustainer, which is very beautiful in the sense that now the ultimate sustenance being God consciousness, and this experience that I'm going through, I am receiving this ultimate sustenance with which is God consciousness from my creator, but also I am observing that my creator is giving God consciousness to that person, as if my creator says, share God consciousness with your fellow human being also. While giving to that person, give it to be used for nafaka, for the sustenance, again from your creator, and then give it in the name of your creator, so that the experience that you are going through is going to be, in a sense, applicable to that other person as well. So it becomes a communal worship in this sense. Very beautifully increasing, if you like, increasing belief among us. As they say, if as you share happiness, it increases. This is how they say it, right? So in here, for instance, as we share sustenance, what is increasing? God consciousness is increasing in both of us, which is actually is being created out of nothing. So the creator is giving me God consciousness because of the way I give, and creating, increasing God consciousness of the recipient because of the way the person receives or takes. So in a very beautiful way, such an act can become a communal or a congregational worship also. With that, we briefly also talked about the fifth condition, which is to give in God's name. Atik, please go ahead.
Yeah, I had a comment on the fourth condition, which is like a nuance that we should think positively about other people and not assume that they might squander it unless we have like good reason to believe that they might do something like that, right? Because we don't want to abuse this condition to just be stingy and not give anyone any money. Is that clear?
Yes, Jazakallah khair. Very good point. That's right. So, Aziz, this is why you should send me money, Aziz. Don't be, okay, he says, Aziz says he wants to remind all of us that as a great citizen, or a great citizen once paid $750 of taxes in 2017. MashaAllah, good, Aziz. Congratulations to that citizen. We don't know if in the other side, let's hope that that citizen is going to benefit from that sadaqah, the tax. So, yeah, the fifth condition is to give in God's name. And we are coming to the end of time for discussion. And the author then expands, says that the conditions may be extended because the verse is not explicitly talking about or is not identifying what is sustenance. It's not simply saying sustenance of food, but it just says sustenance. So that is the form of almsgiving should take with what goods? It may be given as learning and knowledge. It may be given as words, like suggestions, advice, or acts. And one final thing in here, do I, let's say when I am sharing my understanding of Quran with someone, do I consider it as sustenance for myself, or do I consider it as luxury for myself? So sharing from which that is sustenance to you also indicates that, am I aware my neediness to what I have in hand? Because if I am studying Quran for intellectual reasons, because it makes me feel that I have a brain, it makes me feel that, oh, I'm utilizing my time and my brain in the good sense. So in such a case, I'm not even appreciating it as a sustenance. So sharing it with somebody else, is it going to be sharing the sustenance really? Or is it going to be, in my case, showing off? So I think this giving things that I consider or I realize as sustenance, not as luxury, not as extra, not as hobby, is also important. Realizing that everything, whatever is I'm experiencing in this life, is a sustenance, is, I guess, a part of this being a more organic way of, or more acceptable way of uh, giving the alms. Yes. Here, I guess I'm going to say this much. Any comments, any questions before we end the day? Waiting a few seconds. Aziz, please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about this concept of sadaqah, and I'm thinking about myself mostly here, and I'm thinking that it boils down to the point that I gotta know that what I have is not mine, and if I give it to someone else, it's the mercy of what's above me and that person that got it there. I basically don't take any credit there. But I'm thinking about, it's easier though to, it's not easier, but basically similar struggle can show up if you don't have enough to survive. Like if you don't have enough food to eat, if you don't have enough health to be comfortable. And I'm just kind of struggling there a little bit. Like, what would be equivalent attitude? You got me, Yusuf. Help my English there. I think you got my question.
I think, as far as I understand, the point that initially Sister Farah was talking about. So, I shall not put myself voluntarily like into a condition of sickness. Okay, good. Or I shall not put myself into a condition of poorness by my own choice. Okay, good. How about if I am put into this condition by my creator? Or if you would like to put in a different words, I found myself in these conditions, which is a challenging or might be a challenging case for me to be unthankful. What am I going to do in this case, right? So is it a case in which it is not possible to find my creator? Is this why am I avoiding, for example, overgiving, so that I'm not going to put myself in this hard condition? I guess the answer is, yeah, well, not the answer, but an answer is, I find myself in these conditions, which must mean that this must be part of my education also. Like I find myself sick sometimes. So there must be a way to learn to get God conscious from this condition also. Likewise, if I am the one in need of receiving sadaqah, because if I'm going to give it, then there must be somebody who is going to receiving it. Definitely, God created somebody in that condition to be in the receiving end of the equation. So definitely it is possible that this other end of the equation is or can and actually must increase their God consciousness because of the way that they are now being educated. It's not that unfortunately they ended up in this case. No, the Creator, who is creating every single cell in its proper place, is creating our lives and our story of life knowingly, with his all-knowing and all-compassionate and all-encompassing will. Therefore, yeah, definitely there's going to be, and there is actually a lot of wisdom in sickness, in being poor, so on and so forth. But I guess the question was, which is, by the way, another topic of discussion. This is what Sister Farah was mentioning. As she said, they are studying this other text about sickness. There they say sickness is a good thing, actually, to get to know about the sustainer, the provider, the healer, and also to the fact that I'm not the owner of my strength, owner of my health. Then yeah, I can share you, Aziz, this part, inshallah. So, but aside from that, I guess within our context, so avoiding this is, shall I put myself in this condition? Shall I inflict myself into that? This was the question. Inshallah, yeah, I hope this helps a little bit. If there is any other comments that anybody wants to add, please go ahead. If not, I am concluding the discussion for today. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. الفاتحة.